Hello, everybody. I believe we are live on Facebook. I'm Ryan Lanier with Organizing for Good. It's my favorite day and time of the week. It is the nonprofit Shoutout interview. I get to reach out to an area nonprofit and hear the amazing things they are doing to fill in the gaps in what's needed to be done to keep people happy and thriving. Not my normal voice today. I've been going through a pretty nasty cold. So I won't be talking as much as usual. So I'm very, very, very excited to welcome Menaka Chanderkar from Asian Family Services. And she is the manager of community education and outreach services. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Certainly. I am very, very excited to get to know you today. So why don't you please launch into what Asian Family Services is all about?
Sure. So Asian Family Support Services of Austin is a nonprofit, and we support survivors of domestic violence, sexual assault, and trafficking in Central Texas. The name is Asian Family Support Services. We were started in the early 90s by a group of South Asian women under the name Saheli, because they wanted to help survivors in their community. And the mainstream service providers didn't quite understand or have the resources to deal with the specific concerns of immigrants who are experiencing violence. I think because they kind of had that understanding, immigrants from other Asian backgrounds started to come to Saheli. We changed the name to Asian Family Support Services of Austin. And now, honestly, we see immigrants from all over. So we have clients from Latin America, the Middle East, Africa. We actually see anybody of all genders, doesn't matter what nationality, what religion, what your status is in terms of immigration, but we specialize in helping all survivors, but especially Asian and immigrant survivors, with culturally grounded, which is a word that we use instead of culturally competent, because that makes it seem like you can be competent in a culture, and that's probably not achievable, but culturally grounded, language accessible, because a lot of our clients speak limited English, and free and confidential services. So that includes a 24-hour hotline, which is 877-281-8371. And you can call that anytime. Somebody will pick up the phone, a trained advocate. They can talk to you whether you are a survivor reaching out for help, whether you are somebody trying to support a survivor, or you have questions. You don't even have to be in Austin. We do serve the 10-county area in Central Texas, but people call us from all over, and we're happy to give referrals and resources and kind of help someone who reaches out to us in that way. We have crisis intervention, safety planning, helping people get out of dangerous situations. And it might be into emergency shelter. It might just be if that person wants to stay. And there are many, many reasons why survivors might want to stay with an abuser. We might help them safety plan within whatever those restrictions are. We provide things like counseling, advocacy, like peer advocacy, which can be if you're trying to navigate the legal system, if you're getting a protective order, if you're applying for benefits, if there's a custody issue. There's a million different things that can be involved in a survivor's journey away from a crisis. And so those are the things that we support people with. We have a domestic violence program to help survivors of domestic violence, sexual assault to help survivors of sexual violence. And we also have an economic justice program under our direct services. A lot of our clients have not lived and earned independently. So this is a way of setting them up and getting them on their feet. And so it could be, helping them with their immigration status because they actually don't have working papers or are dependent on the abuser for their immigration. It could be life skills, financial literacy, interview practice, English lessons, all sorts of things, resumes, finding job placements. We're doing a lot of that stuff right now to try to get people back on their feet. We also have a transitional housing program, which is, again, if somebody's kind of ready to start living independently, but they haven't been working, they don't have their own financial resources. A big component of domestic violence is financial abuse, which is something that I think we don't talk about as much. People are kind of pretty ready to accept that physical violence is wrong and bad and recognize that as domestic abuse. There's other kinds of abuse. There's emotional and verbal, right? So isolating somebody, making them feel small, making them feel like you're the only one that they can depend on, or you're the only one who'll ever love them or take care of them or deal with them. That's emotional abuse, calling them stupid, calling them useless, saying that they're never going to find anybody else or they won't make it on their own. Financial abuse is limiting someone's ability to earn their own money and support themselves. So with our clients, because a lot of them are immigrants, that looks like maybe taking away their papers or not letting them move forward in the immigration process and controlling how they're spending. So because we want to get people back on their feet and they may not have that work history and they may not have that financial security, our transitional housing program, we partner with landlords so they get to pick the apartment. And then for 12 to 18 months, we pay their rent and their utilities so that way they can be there. Often they have children with them, and then kind of to get that cushion to get started living independently. So that's our direct services side. I do the outreach side, outreach and prevention. And what we do is we do a couple things. One is we want to engage with communities. So we don't talk about domestic violence, and we don't talk about domestic violence in mainstream culture that much, right? Mainstream American culture. It's discussed even less in immigrant cultures. Same with sexual violence. They don't talk, I'm from an immigrant culture. We don't really talk about sex and sexuality. So we definitely don't talk about sexual assault. So just kind of having conversations with communities around these things, making them aware that this does happen. It's sadly really common. It knows no barriers in terms of race, religion, socioeconomic status, immigration status, gender, and making people understand, that, or rather working and partnering with organizations so people grow to understand. We don't make people understand. So they grow to understand that it's never the survivor's fault. It's always the abuser's fault. And we want to reduce that stigma and also let people know that we're around. We have culturally grounded resources. We get it. We understand there are reasons why a lot of times immigrant survivors aren't reaching out to law enforcement. They could just be uncomfortable. They could have trauma from their home country or from here. They could just not know how the criminal justice system works here. And they could be afraid about their immigration status. What'll happen if they're undocumented? What'll happen if they're married to the person who's actually their sponsor for their immigration? So, and that's the abuser. So we kind of go in, we talk about those things, we do prevention work. So we want to prevent violence from happening, right? AFSA's whole thing is we want to be out of business. It'd be amazing if we could shutter our doors, right? And there'd be no need for domestic violence and sexual assault services. So the prevention part of it is how do we build healthier communities? A lot of that has to do with mental health, teaching consent, talking about kind of what it's like to support people when they're in crisis, and encouraging people to reach out if they do need support. And so all that kind of stuff is wrapped up in the outreach and prevention side. But like I said, everything that we do is culturally grounded. So we really center the person and their culture and the place that it holds in their healing journey. And then we also want to make sure everything's language accessible. So somebody feels like they can express themselves and they can receive information in the language they're most comfortable. Because if you've suffered abuse or assault, you've already had your autonomy taken away from you. And it's really rough to go through the process of navigating services. And we really want people to feel really comfortable and empowered to be themselves, to tell their story, to say yes or no, know that they're the ones in charge. And it's just a world of difference if they can do it in their own language.
Absolutely. I don't think they know how to give themselves any kind of permission. And so it sounds like you are creating a lot of avenues for people that just wouldn't have that option. It's amazing. Love hearing everything you're doing. Wow. Gosh, thank you. That's a beautiful explanation. And there's so much there. Whew, there's so much there. So how long have you been around? I don't think I knew that.
So we have been around since 1992.
Okay.
We are hitting our
Excellent.
30th year next year. And we were founded as Saheli, which is a Hindi
Okay.
word that kind of means female friend. And that's because we were founded by South Asians
Yes.
or other
Yes.
South Asians. Um, so we've been around in one form or another. And so it's funny if you talk to community members, they may not, AFSA may not ring a bell right away, but once they hear Saheli, they're like, oh, yes. And then we've transitioned from being an all volunteer organization to now being a 501c3 with paid staff.
That's a great transition. Everything involves a transition. I assume that you have partnerships with other nonprofits in the area.
Yeah, so that's another big component of outreach work is building systems that are more accessible for immigrant survivors. And a lot of that is partnering with, mainstream shelters like SAFE, Hope Alliance. We work with law enforcement, sexual assault response and resource teams, which every county has, and that usually has law enforcement, the prosecutors and shelters sitting on there. So we want to make sure that we're there, so we're advocating for our communities as well. We partner with faith groups. A lot of times we can reach people in their communities of faith. That's where they're comfortable, and that's where we can go and kind of build that trust with the community, because that's the biggest thing, right? They need to trust us. You need to trust somebody if you're going to reach out for help. So we partner with all different kinds of organizations, UT student organizations, UT departments, programs at other universities in the area. We are open to partnership with everyone, because that's just kind of how we forge services that are more accessible to immigrants. And then we're also educating, so that if on the direct services side, hopefully if an advocate has a client with a need, they go to somebody, and that person has heard of us and understands the barriers immigrant survivors face, and they understand what's needed. So that's, it's kind of works together, doing this kind of systems advocacy work, doing these community partnerships, and then hopefully those create the changes that, when an individual client or survivor needs something, they're facing a much friendlier system than they would have earlier.
So speaking of changes, no doubt COVID brought some challenges and maybe some lessons. I would love to hear a little bit about y'all's journey with, going through COVID and where we are now.
Yeah, I mean, like everyone else, this has been quite a year and a half now, almost. So I think mostly like everyone else, we shut down mid-March last year, and we never interrupted services in terms of, we never stopped or suspended the hotline or anything. We kept going, but it was a lot to think about, because we have a physical office. We don't disclose the location, and that's for the safety of our clients and staff, because abusers can be very resourceful, and they can find out where the partner is going, where the survivor is going. And so we want to keep our staff and our clients safe. So we have this space. It's a safe, secure space that people can come to. They can meet with their advocate. They can call an attorney. They can print things. They can bring their kids. We have a playroom, and we lost all of that. And so kind of to accommodate that, we are doing services remotely still via calls and via Zoom. Our advocates may do basic needs drop-offs, because a lot of our clients, when everything started, were working in the service sector, so working in restaurants or working in salons, and that all shut down, so they lost their kind of income, and there was a big need for groceries, diapers, things like that. So starting to mobilize that for our clients and our communities was really important, and something that we'd always done but wasn't always top of mind. It was on a case-by-case basis, and this was realizing that, oh my gosh, we have all these clients who are in a really precarious situation where they've lost work. We don't know how long this is going to go on, and they are missing basic needs. So we immediately started fundraising, and we had some very generous community members step forward and give us money so we could put it towards basic needs for our clients. And like I said, we transitioned our services online. There's also another kind of complication with that, in that people were working from home. So, and like I said, we see people of all genders. A lot of the time, our clients are women in a married relationship with a man, and the man is the abuser. And I always want to qualify that by saying anybody can be an abuser. It doesn't, the gender doesn't matter, but these are the majority of the people that we deal with. And that man who used to go to work is now home in the house all day, right? So that space the survivor used to have, where maybe she could go out into the community, she could meet with friends, she could go, to her mosque or to her temple or to her church, that wasn't happening anymore. And then if she wanted to reach out to us, she was sharing a space with an abuser who's monitoring her, and that was really tough. So, we have people calling the hotline from closets, or people calling the hotline and then immediately hanging up because, the abuser walks into the room. So just that kind of, you can imagine that claustrophobia and that being in those tight quarters and not having whatever support systems they may have been accessing before in their community, those are gone. We also had the rise in anti-Asian racism. So that was another layer on top of everything else. So it was hard. I mean, it's incredibly hard. And we also know that things were happening and people weren't reaching out because they were feeling isolated and they didn't have access to spaces or people they otherwise would have access to. And the abuser was home. So that was one part of it. And we're doing the best we can. Everything's been online, remote. We want to keep everyone safe, but it's tough. It's tough to not have that physical space that feels really safe and secure. And it's tough for our clients and for survivors in general to not have at least a little bit of freedom they might have had if the abuser is out of the house for 8 hours a day. And then on the outreach side, again, we're out in the community usually, and that means going to big festivals and having tables and giving out information in various languages to people. And we couldn't do any of that. So we had to move everything online, which has been great. Like this exact format, we do this a lot. We are, like you, we are experts in the Zoom to Facebook Live format, but that also only reaches a certain audience. You have to be speaking English. You have to have technology access. You have to be able to sit and watch a video at 10:30 a.m. on a Thursday, right? And that's a certain kind of, and so we also want to try to think through how to reach the people that we normally would be reaching in these big community events. And so we're trying to look at different social media platforms. Maybe we do public service announcements in various languages, things like that, so people still know we're there, our services are available. We're slowly doing 1 or 2 more in-person events here and there, and I'm sure it'll start increasing, but I don't know if it's going to get back to where it was for a while. So like we've all learned this year, you need flexibility and you need to be a little scrappy. And that's what we've been doing along with everyone else.
That's amazing. You've really, risen to the challenges. And I know you're just waiting for, as soon as you have the opportunity to go back to the things that are needed and helpful, you're ready. I mean, you sound very organized. I love it. Wow.
I'm glad you sound organized.
You do. You really do. You do. Well, you're taking on a lot, and it doesn't sound like you're very diluted. It's not diluted, but diluted. It sounds like you're really meeting needs. And you brought up some stuff that, that hurts my heart when I think about the people being at home with abuser and then the abuser's home all the time. Wow. That really, I could be laying awake at night thinking about that, because that is just, not something I would have thought about. So anyway, so anything that you really learned that you feel like, wow, COVID gave us that gift of figuring out, and maybe you said this already, but do you feel like there was something that you had to reinvent and you were like, wow, this is actually better?
I mean, I think one thing that is from my perspective, because I don't work with clients, so I can't speak for the direct services team. And I know that their challenges have been much more acute in the last year and a half. One thing that's been really lovely, and I think that we may keep doing is, if we do an event like this online, we can get people tuning in from all over, which has been really nice. And we didn't even think about it when we did our first online event after everything started. And I don't think we broadcast it live. It was a mental health event that we just thought there seems to be a need for this in our community. Let's do it. And it was a Zoom. So we had people, and it didn't even occur to me, oh yeah, people can attend from New York. They can attend from California. They can attend from, Canada, like wherever. And so that was really lovely to kind of start, one, to have that space that people could access, even if they weren't geographically in Central Texas, just to hear from people from all over. So I could see us going forward doing a mix. We definitely want to do in-person events again. I miss being able to offer people food because that's a good incentive for people to come.
Oh my gosh, especially culturally grounded food sounds amazing. Go on and tell us what events you have coming on and ways that people can support and get involved with you.
Sure. So right now we will most likely, and you can look for our Facebook page, and I believe that you all are linking or tagging us. So it's Asian Family Support Services of Austin. You can look up AFSSA and you should find us on Facebook. And the handle is at AFSS Austin. And so we're on Instagram and Facebook. We are most likely doing something this month for Pride. Towards the end of the month, a Facebook Live discussion around how coming out is really kind of like a Western concept. And for a lot of queer folks from immigrant families and communities, they may choose not to come out. And what does that mean? And, how they can kind of own that decision when they don't want to lose their community and their family. And we don't talk about who we're dating anyway, even when we're straight. So, it just, the division makes sense in a way. And the idea that it's been promoted that coming out is like a necessary step for queer folks, I think can be really hard for people from our communities. So that's one thing we have on the calendar. We are participating in Thinkery's Community Night, which is a series of videos. And I believe that's on June 23rd in the evening, and that'll stream on Thinkery's Facebook page. So they're spotlighting Asian cultures, and we're going to be one of, I think, 5 community partners doing a little activity. So we're going to read a story and do an origami demonstration. So that'll be fun. And then we'll probably do something in August as well for Austin Pride, something that's a little bit bigger, like a big panel discussion or something. But there's always stuff. So like I said, follow us. You can always check in on Facebook or Instagram. We're less active on Twitter. We should work on that. And then you can always jump on our website, which is afssaustin.org, and we'll put updates there as well.
Great. What about volunteers or like flat out donations?
We are very happy to take donations. We are funded primarily by government grants, which is great, but it also kind of creates restrictions where we can't always, it's money's earmarked for something specific. And if we have a need arise, like suddenly we're realizing at the beginning of COVID, oh my gosh, all of our clients are losing their jobs and they also don't have money to keep the lights on or to buy diapers or formula or groceries. We need to get some money together quick to do that. And we just had to do emergency fundraising. So we really welcome financial contributions. They're tax deductible. Like I said, we are a 501c3 organization, and I believe you can go to afssaustin.org/donate and you can make a contribution there. Before COVID, we were taking like household goods and things like that for our clients, but we've kind of stopped that because with the pandemic, it's just a little tough to navigate that. But we are so grateful for any kind of financial contribution that just helps us serve our community and our clients more, and expand the services we're able to offer and then sustain the services we already have. Because one of the things I'm really proud about at AFSA is that we don't have some sort of limitation on how long someone can be a client. So it's not like they log a certain number of hours of services and then they're cut off. We understand that domestic violence and sexual assault can have repercussions that are lifelong. And so we don't ever want to turn somebody away if they need something again. So clients are lifelong clients, and they could come to us in crisis. They could kind of get out of that situation, and then they could show up again 6 months later, a year later, 2 years later, because something else is going on and they need support. Our advocates are amazing, and they will get calls from clients a couple years after the fact because they need something else. And we always want to support that. So in order for us to do that, we need funding and we need donations so we can keep the programs going and always be there the way we promised we're going to always be there, the way that we were there over COVID. I mean, that's another thing I'm really proud of, is we did not stop services. They look different, and there was definitely some juggling and some kind of figuring out how things are going to work, but we never said, okay, we're not taking anyone, we're not doing intakes, we're not doing the hotline. We kept going through it all. And we also we're a partner for the city's Rise Fund, which gave grants, or which gave money out, like relief funds out to members of our community who maybe didn't get the federal relief fund. So we're also administering that. So we take that definitely. Volunteer opportunities, we have them. They're mostly remote for now. So I can jump on after this and put a link in, or just put I believe it's volunteer at afssaustin.org. You can also do info at afssaustin.org if you're interested. We love volunteers. We like to really build up our volunteer program. We just started doing that. So, if you're someone who loves planning parties, you can help with our gala. If you're someone who is really tech savvy, you can help with our website. If you just love kind of bringing people together, you can help us with events. So there's all sorts of different things we can do. And we really would love to have members of the community, especially members of the community who speak other languages.
For sure. Can you give us a short list of the number of languages you're having to cover?
Oh gosh. So it's something like, since the beginning, we have given services in over 35 languages, and it may have increased.
Wow.
And so we have a lot that are spoken on staff, but because we have that commitment to language access, we will have an interpreter on hand, whenever somebody needs it. But yeah, we have, a ton of languages, definitely Asian languages, Mandarin, Korean, Nepali, Hindi, Burmese, and all the various, like Karen, Kareni, all those different dialects, Thai, Vietnamese. So just Spanish, because we are getting more and more Spanish speaking clients, Farsi, Pashto, Dari. So yeah, we have a need because we want to help everyone, and we live in a really diverse, amazing community. So the more the better. So yes, if you're interested in volunteering, please reach out. And if you're at a corporation and you have a group that you want to get involved as kind of a corporate group, or a lot of the tech companies have, Asian kind of, affiliate groups where it's a bunch of Asian employees who work together and do events and things like that, please reach out. We'd love to work with you.
And staffing your hotline, how is that? Are those volunteers as well, or those?
Yes, that's all paid staff. So our full-time staff takes it during business hours, then nights and weekends is like paid hotline advocates.
Makes sense. I mean, that's a hefty, like, that's the front lines, right? You've got to be able to, if somebody's going to make that call, that needs to be handled, as well as possible. Is there anything I haven't asked yet? Is there any maybe heartwarming story you would have to share, or just why you love your job or something like that?
Well, a couple things, I guess. I'm trying to think of a specific story. I think there's just so many different stories and so many different paths, but it's really amazing to see somebody who, through no fault of their own whatsoever, had their power taken away. And the ones that really get me are the people with kids, and who managed to make a safe and secure home for themselves and their kids and get out of an abusive situation. And it's rough. And we do know that the time abusers are most dangerous is when somebody's trying to leave. And that's why we don't force the issue. I think that survivors know when when it's safer and when it's not. They know their own safety. But just, yeah, we have so many stories like that just, it's amazing. You know, people start thriving. And then what's really lovely is sometimes they become spokespeople for us. They want to share their story. They want to talk about it because they feel like if I am from a certain community and somebody who's dealing with the same thing sees me, then they'll know they're not the only ones, and they'll know there's help. So that there's help, and that's really great. And that's one of the things I love. I really love working with immigrant communities, with other women who are from immigrant communities, and just learning more about who's here in Austin. I feel like every other week I'm learning about, oh my gosh, like I didn't know this group had this church over here. I didn't know that there was this festival that happened. And it's really lovely. And it's so great to make those connections. And then to also reassure people that we're here and we have services and we're ready for them if they ever want to reach out.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for all that incredible information. Manica, this has been really amazing. So thank you for your time today. Everybody who's watched this and watched any nonprofit shout out interviews, please like and share it to your page, because like Manica just said, someone might need to hear it that you don't know, and you're sharing it may spark something that changes something for someone. And that is huge. So you could also venture over to the YouTube channel, subscribe while you're there. There's a huge body of work over there, hearing lots of nonprofits taking care of amazing things. The last thing I want to say is that next week we're going to be interviewing partners in parenting. So I'm very excited about that. And thank you so much for doing all the talking today. Normally I like to share, but I really want to hear what you guys are doing. So maybe this will be my MO going forward. Talk less, Ryan.
Thanks for having us. And I sympathize, because as you see, I am a talker, as you can hear. So I know it when you don't.
It's wonderful. So thank you, gosh, for all that great information. Thanks for everybody who watched this, who's going to watch it later, share it. It's what we're here for. So I'm Ryan Lanier of Organizing for Good, and I will see you guys next week. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Take care.